Hey, movie lovers. The movie theater lobby is open once again. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Leia.
And for those of you who may be here with us for the very first time, the movie theater lobby is a place for us to gather with other movie-curious folks and movie fans in general, and chat about the world within and beyond the screen. And along the way to hopefully gain maybe a new perspective, a new set of eyes for some of our favorite and maybe for some of you not so favorite movies. And as we get started, I'd like to invite all of our listeners to go ahead and grab some yummy snacks and some delicious drinks.
As you do when you watch a movie.
Sit back, pull up a chair, get cozy with us. Oh, one more thing. Of course, being a movie theater lobby, don't forget to turn off your cell phones or just silence them at least.
But if you're going to silence your cell phones,
make sure you also turn off those notoriously invasive and pesky AI
you know they're
assistants.
always listening.
Always listening.
Mm-hmm.
Just something extra devious about the AI that we carry with us everywhere, right?
Everywhere, yeah.
Which kind of also brings to mind, Leia, I don't think we mentioned, what movie are we checking out today?
Upgrade.
Upgrade.
So Upgrade is a sci-fi action thriller released in 2018, set in a near-ish future of 2046.
Mm-hmm.
It never explicitly says it in the movie 2046, but
you can figure it out.
You can figure it out through some other context clues that you see in the film. But we meet a man named Gray Trace. He's played by Logan Marshall-Green, and he's a real analog type of guy, hands-on, do-it-himself kind of guy. Doesn't like his technology. He's not...
He'd be a guy who still has a flip phone.
Probably, yeah,
He'd still have a flip phone.
Yeah, he'd be that sort.
Yeah.
But we meet Gray. He's working in his garage on a 1978 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am.
I'm not usually a Trans Am fan, but it was a sexy car.
It was a pretty hot car.
Mm-hmm.
There's no denying that.
It was nice.
After finishing his repairs, Gray has himself a little celebratory beer.
Of course, you should.
Yeah, self-congratulations for a job well done.
Actually, I was working very hard today. In fact, that right there is a celebratory beer.
As he's doing so, his wife Asha, played by Melanie Vallejo, who is arriving in a car that's very different than the one that he's been working on.
Tesla on steroids, man.
Basically, yeah. It seems to be possibly an electric vehicle.
It looks like a Tesla truck.
It does look like a Cybertruck. You're right. It talks, it responds, it's self-driving. She can just sit in the back seat, do her work, and the car gets her exactly where she needs to go.
Mm-hmm.
But she arrives home. She works for a company named Cobalt, which is one of, I believe, two very technologically based companies in this world, kind of vying for technological supremacy. So after she gets home and they have a little bit of a chit-chat, Gray tells Asha that he needs to deliver the newly finished car to its owner, a tech developer named Aaron Keene. And Gray needs Asha to come along so he can get home afterward, because obviously he's going to drop off the old car. He's got to have a way to get home.
Yeah, I need you to drive me home in that toy car of yours. It's like 45 minutes away. I'll push a button and end up in Canada or something.
So he needs to ride in her fancy-dancy self-driving vehicle.
But she needs to come with him.
Right.
He can't do it.
I don't know. Do you think if you just talked to the self-driving car...
It would follow you?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I think you could tell it where to go. You don't have to be in it.
Right. Anyway, he convinces her to come along because he tells her she will be very impressed with this man's home.
Mm-hmm.
So reluctant to go, Asha concedes and says, okay, fine. I'll come along with you. When they arrive to this really kind of neatly hidden home, it's kind of hidden underground.
It's weird.
It is weird.
I don't know. I don't like it. I'm not a fan. You just walk into the ground.
Yeah, it's like a secret hidden base.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
No.
I want one.
No.
No? You're not going to let me have my little hidden home base?
When you strike it rich, we'll do that, okay?
Oh, boy.
Yeah,
okay.
So it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. Well, I'll continue to dream. After a very brief and very awkward introduction, Aaron, who is also played by Harrison Gilbertson, they get to talking about tech. Because obviously, as I'd mentioned, she works for Cobalt, and he works for another company called Vessel. what I find kind of odd, let me just kind of break away here for a minute. If he works, so he brags to her about how her company is nowhere near the advancements that his company is, particularly because of this brand new AI chip that he's developed. If this tech is supposed to be top secret, why would he go bragging to her about it, meaning that she works for his direct competitor?
I'm in the industry too. I work for Cobalt. I mean, we're nothing like Vessel yet, but we're getting there.
No, you're not.
I just thought that was funny. One of those situations we probably got to suspend our disbelief, right? To get the plot moving along, we just have to convince ourselves that it's all
It's normal.
Just standard shop talk.
Yeah.
So after a little bit of explanation about what his top secret improvement is all about,
I would like to introduce you to my present and the rest of the world's future. I call it STEM.
Gray and Asha decide to head home. So they leave the tech developer behind, and the loving couple get in their self-driving vehicle, and
it's hands-free, so they start messing around.
One of the big benefits to a self-driving car.
The big bump.
Is you can have blackout windows. You don't have to pay attention where you're going.
I think they get it.
Okay, great. And then I will continue to talk then about other things. As they're riding in the car, they do happen to notice that the car's going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
It's not taking the turn
Particularly
that
Gray. Gray was very upset. And she was like, it's fine.
Gray
It's
was
probably a detour. And he's like, nah, this ain't no detour.
No. Gray was rather suspicious right away. So they try to redirect the car.
Car, take us home.
I'm sorry. There has been an error.
With all sorts of speech and demands.
Panic sets in.
Yeah, exactly. While they're doing that, the car begins to even speed up. And eventually, it crashes. Rather spectacularly.
And he throws a seatbelt on her last second.
Yeah, he puts the seatbelt on Asha
so cute.
to save her, and he is then left without a seatbelt. Obviously,
tossed around.
The man is putting her safety before himself. After the vehicle crashes, the two are pulled from their now mangled self-driving car, which I'm certain can probably no longer self-drive, by a gang of thugs. The dastardly group shoots Asha in the chest and throws Gray on the ground and shoots him in the spine.
Yeah, no explanation.
No explanation, nothing. The only semblance of an explanation you can get is that he complains about,
you look at me and see a real piece of shit on your shoe, don't you? Learned woman like yourself, looking down on an uneducated insect like me.
Doesn't seem like a good reason to shoot somebody in the chest, but that's the only reason we're given so far.
Yeah, it's not a good enough reason for Gray.
Right. So Gray is shot in the spine while he's lying on the ground, and unfortunately his head is turned to his dying wife, and he cannot move his head or his body.
Watch her
He's
die.
completely paralyzed. So he has to, as you said, just lie there and watch her die. Can't do a thing.
Asha, I can't get to you. I can't move. Asha.
The criminals leave, and law enforcement arrives far too late. Asha is beyond saving, and Gray is rushed to the hospital. Next, we see 3 months later, Gray is absolutely paralyzed, quadriplegic, and in the hospital.
Depressed.
He's eventually released home, but he's in a wheelchair.
His mother's taking care of him.
Mother's taking care of him. He's being shown how to use a pair of mechanical arms attached to a table that would be there to prepare food and deliver medication for him. Really, it's a very sad, depressing moment for a person.
Abysmal.
Absolutely. He's so used to working with his hands. He's, as we mentioned before, he's an analog type of guy, does it all himself. And now he can do nothing on his own. So, despite all of that, Gray decides to take his motorized wheelchair and head to the police station and speak with the detective in charge of his case to see if any news has broken about the people that did this to him and his wife. The detective replies saying that no leads have been found, no evidence has been found, no clues to get them anywhere moving forward.
They're doing everything they can.
As they always say. With this news fresh on his mind, returning home, realizing he's a far sight from the man he was and he no longer has Asha in his life, he tries to fool the robotic arms into ODing him on his medication.
Again.
I cannot administer any more medication, Gray.
No, you didn't do it right.
Eventually, of course, as technology is advanced enough at that point, the robotic arms understand that they cannot give him any more or he will suffer medical issues. So the robotic arms now contact emergency medical services, and Gray is once again hospitalized. So while in the hospital, there's various visitors that come to see Gray, of course, loved ones, family members, things like that. But he's also visited by Aaron Keene, the man we had met before, who had
with the chip,
who had made this advanced AI chip. And Aaron presents Gray with an offer.
What if I told you I could offer you something that would enable you to walk again?
And Gray says, no, I just want to die. I just want to be done. Aaron leaves.
But what does he say as he's leaving?
What would she want?
Yeah, and that was
the
turning point in his mind. Like, oh, yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah. So Gray apparently eventually accepts the offer. So Aaron says the surgery will be done at Aaron's residence because
it's illegal.
It's illegal. It's experimental technology.
Yep.
According to the laws in the country, you can't just use this sort of experimental technology on humans without all sorts of regulations and all that other stuff, right?
You had to sign an NDA.
Sign NDAs. Yeah. Nobody can know about this. Nobody. Gray says, okay, fine, let's do this. So the surgery happens. Gray is in, I'm certain, not even a day of recovery, at least the way it seems in the film, and he almost immediately begins having full control over his body again. Now feeling much more optimistic, Gray signs more NDAs, and away he goes back home. Once at home, he decides to start looking into the evidence of the case himself, since the police really weren't being a whole lot of assistance. While doing so, he begins hearing a voice in his head, which is incredibly unusual. Nobody told him this was going to happen.
He thinks he's losing his mind.
He's gone insane? Right. It turns out that the voice in his head, only Gray can hear it, and it says that it is STEM, the AI chip that was implanted in Gray's spine to give him use of his body again. Of course, obviously at first, Gray is a little hesitant, a little freaked out by the whole situation, but he does come around rather surprisingly quickly to the idea. Once STEM says, hey, play back that footage again of the attack on you and your wife, think I noticed something. And indeed, STEM did. He found a tattoo identification, which leads them to one of the people that took part in this brutal attack. And Gray decides, okay, we've got this evidence, great, I'm going to call the cops. But STEM stops him and says, hey, no one's supposed to know about me. You can't tell the police you got this evidence because of my assistance, because I don't exist. And you're a quadriplegic, according to everyone else in the world. Nobody else can know that you're able to use your limbs, which would be a very odd situation, being that you went through this experimental thing to get the use of your body back, but nobody can know about it. So no matter how capable you are, if anyone else is around, you have to continue to behave like a quadriplegic, right? So very odd situation. Gray says, okay, what do we do then? STEM proposes an idea. Let's go do this ourselves. Why bother with the police? We have this man's ID, his address, his name. Let's go do this ourselves, get more information from this guy to lead us up the chain of criminals, right? Gray decides to go along with the plan. A little hesitant, but sure, why not? Let's do this. A little breaking and entering between friends. What's the harm? So they arrive at this man's house. This man, his name is Cirque. An odd name, but I like it.
I do too.
Gray and STEM wait outside this man's house, kind of hiding behind a vehicle in the motorized wheelchair, and wait for Cirque to leave his home. When he does, they break in real quick, start looking around for other evidence. They find a few things, but nothing super important. While they're digging around, Cirque comes home. All right, now we've got trouble, because now a man who's a quadriplegic is inside a man's home who was in the attack that made this man a quadriplegic. At first, Cirque doesn't recognize Gray, but finally he does realize, oh shit, you're the guy who we paralyzed and killed your wife. Great, this is going to be trouble. So Cirque starts kicking Gray's ass a little bit. And while Gray's getting his ass beat, STEM, in Gray's mind, says,
I need your permission to operate independently. Permission granted! Thank you.
STEM takes over. And this is where the fun begins. The action sequence that we see here, the fight sequence, is very thrilling, very exciting, really well choreographed, and has some pretty over-the-top gore involved in it. But after the combat is over, Gray and STEM have a few pieces of evidence to find a new direction to go in their search for whodunit. And I think at this point, let's leave Gray and STEM to find their clues and journey forth in their adventure while we go ahead
And journey forth on ours.
and journey forth on ours. Right. So let's get out of this plot and talk about the people involved, the real world people that were involved in this movie.
Yeah.
So who should we start with today, Leia?
Let's start with Logan Marshall-Green.
Why not the guy
The
who's
main character.
the first face we see, the last face we see, the face we see throughout the whole film? Logan Marshall-Green played Gray Trace,
Mhm.
of course. What do you want to talk about with Logan?
You know, I didn't realize he was in a lot of stuff that I've seen. I guess I just didn't put the two and two together. But his breakout role was as Charlie Holloway in Ridley Scott's Prometheus from 2012. And I watched a clip of it and I was like, oh, yeah, that is him.
Yeah, but that
Totally him.
absolutely is.
Yeah, I didn't know that. He is also in 6 episodes of OC, which I didn't watch, but I know it was a pretty popular show.
Right.
But he's also in 24.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. He was in the OC, but he was in 6 episodes of 24.
Oh, all right.
He played, I don't know, some guy that they were interrogating.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Some
for
background criminal or something.
Yeah. But he's almost completely unrecognizable when you look it up because it was from 2005.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So
quite a ways beforehand.
he was pretty young then, yeah. So it's almost hard to recognize him, but I didn't realize he was in that.
Yeah, no, that's a neat little cameo.
And we watched that show.
Yeah, we did see 24 back in the day. It was real popular at its time.
At the time it was, yeah. He also had a few appearances in Law and Order before the OC in 24.
Yeah, the more and more we do this podcast, the more I'm noticing a lot of actors run through Law and Order and CIS.
Yep, I noticed that too, especially with anything that has to do with like the police or cops or,
Yeah, those shows just, they have a way of consuming everybody in Hollywood because they've run forever and they need actors for different roles.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing I found that he was in was he was in a very short piece, a very small segment of Spider-Man Homecoming.
Oh, really?
In 2017. He played Jackson Bryce, who's Shocker.
Oh, okay.
And he's in this scene with the main bad guy. He's played by Michael Keaton.
Oh, the Vulture.
The Vulture.
Yes.
Yeah, he's in a scene with the Vulture and he disagrees with the Vulture and the Vulture ends up liquefying him.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
So he has a very short role in that film, but he's in it.
Hey, got a little MCU credit to his name.
Yep. Everyone needs a little bit of that too, right?
I mean, realistically,
a lot of these people are in those too.
The MCU. Also consumes Hollywood in a big way.
Yes.
I do also want to mention that he's in 2 other smaller films that I really enjoyed.
Oh, really?
Devil, which took place primarily in an elevator.
The horror movie.
Yep.
Did Leigh Whannell write that one too? No, okay.
No,
he tends to like movies about small spaces. So I was just curious.
True, he does. But no, this was a great film back in 2010, sort of a semi-mystery, sort of like a social deduction sort of mystery about a bunch of people stuck in an elevator that had stopped, and one of them is the devil. So fun.
Yeah.
I liked it. It was pretty cool.
I feel like I've seen it, but it was a while ago.
It was a while
so,
back.
Yeah.
You may not recall it, but it was fun. I really enjoyed that one. But also he was in the movie The Invitation.
Oh, yeah.
Which was really kind of twisted and weird, but also very fun. Not a dinner party I'd like to be invited to.
No, nope, not at all.
I'll skip on that one.
Yes.
I did want to mention quick, too, that Logan Marshall-Green, he has a lineage of acting in his family.
He does.
Yeah.
His mom was a teacher for Brown.
I don't recall where, but both of his parents were drama teachers.
Yeah.
But his mom, I think, had
I think she's a teacher for Brown University or something like that. Yeah.
Something of that nature.
It's a pretty prestigious university. Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely got some qualifications.
When I read that, I was like, oh, that's so
family.
cute.
Yeah.
And he's continued it on.
Keeping up with the family legacy. And he has a master's in fine arts from the Tisch School of the Arts.
Not surprising.
Yeah, I mean, he's got...
Followed right in their footsteps.
Yeah, got certifications behind him.
Yeah.
And many people will probably recognize, upon seeing this film especially, he often gets confused with Tom Hardy because he does have a very striking resemblance to Tom Hardy, but he is his own person. They are not the same individual.
Yeah, I actually remember bringing that up to you. I was like, you remember Venom? And you're like, that was Tom Hardy. And I'm like, oh, but you can't deny they look the same. He's like... They do look the same. I'm like, all right, well, I thought I was onto something, but I wasn't because it's not the same guy.
Yeah, not in this case. 2 discrete people.
Yeah, they do look a lot alike, though.
They do.
Yeah.
Though it would be fun to have a Hollywood resume where in some cases you're Tom Hardy, and in another case you're Logan Marshall-Green, but you're really the same person.
The same guy.
And you never let someone know. You could never be in the same movie together. That'd be a problem.
Never let people know the next move, okay?
It's like a Superman thing.
Yeah.
Who's next on your plate?
I just want to briefly bring up Melanie Vallejo.
Yeah, absolutely.
She played Asha Trace, Gray's wife.
Gray's wife.
She doesn't have a ton behind her. She was a longtime actor on a show called Winners and Losers. She had 109 episodes. I've never seen it, never heard of it
I'd
even.
never heard of it either, but it was a long runner.
Long runner. She was in 32 episodes of Power Rangers Mystic Force from 2006.
She was the Blue Ranger.
Yeah, she's the Blue Ranger, Blue Mystic Ranger.
Right, of course.
And the Mystic Mermaid. Yeah. And I think the real name of the character in that is Madison Roca.
Yeah, something like that.
But yeah, she played 32 episodes of that. I love that.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. That's really cool.
I think it's cool too, because she seemed like a very serious actor.
Yeah.
But then she was in this Power Rangers.
Right.
And I think that's great.
I was never a Power Rangers fan,
No.
but I never hated it.
No.
You know, I wasn't one person who was against it. It just never really caught my attention.
No.
But it is pretty cool.
It is pretty cool, yeah.
And she, just kind of a little life statement about her. She attended high school in South Australia. And did I also mention that a lot of people in this film are Australian?
Yeah, probably because the writer-director is from Australia as well.
I believe it was filmed in Australia. So that probably makes sense. I think Logan Marshall-Green is one of the few who isn't Australian.
Yeah. I would say next I'd like to probably bring up Harrison Gilbertson. He plays Aaron Keene.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely worth mentioning. Another kind of smallish role in the film, but totally notable.
Yeah.
STEM wouldn't be a thing without him.
He was in Oppenheimer, which I thought was... I looked up what part he played in that, and it was a smaller part, but 2023. So, I mean, he's pretty active still.
If you can get a credit in Oppenheimer, that's a big credit.
Mm-hmm. And then he was in Need for Speed in 2014, and he was a pretty major character in that one. I honestly don't remember. For whatever reason, I remember the title Need for Speed. Like, I've seen it before, but I don't remember the film.
Yeah. No, I definitely know of the video game series.
Yeah, but he was in the film Need for Speed. He was one of the main, crew for the whatever.
Well, maybe we'll have to watch it sometime.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, I'm a sucker for the Fast and the Furious movies, which I hate to admit, but if I can sit through how many films of those?
Oh my gosh, and they were so ridiculous
11
too.
If you
yes,
count the spinoff.
Yeah,
I imagine I can sit through one Need for
Speed. Need for Speed, agreed.
I'm not a car guy though. I just really want to flat out say that I'm not a car guy. Although the cars in this movie were pretty cool, especially the old.
You can't
cars.
deny the cars are cool.
The cars are cool.
Yeah,
I'm just not a car guy. But anyway, Need for Speed. Let's check it out sometime.
Mm-hmm. Do you have anything else on Harrison?
I also saw that he played in a film from 2009 called Accidents Happen, which I had never seen, so I don't know much about that one. But apparently it's pretty notable on his listing, as well as Virginia from 2010. Another one I have not seen, not terribly familiar with, but hey.
It seemed like he goes more towards drama action.
Yeah, he definitely seems to be more of a drama. But he's been acting since age 6. In fact, he started acting with the State Opera of South Australia.
Oh, so he's Australian. Another Aussie?
He's also Australian. Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
It's definitely going to be a theme. But how about Benedict Hardy next?
Another Aussie.
Yes.
Plays Fisk.
Absolutely. Kind of one of the main antagonists.
He was awesome in this.
But yeah, he's, like you mentioned, another Australian, but he had a role in The Invisible Man.
Which is another one written by Leigh Whannell.
Yeah, exactly right.
You know, the Invisible Man was also another movie that had another actress that I love in it, Elizabeth Moss.
Oh, yeah.
Who's also in The Handmaid's Tale. And if you listen to any of our other episodes, there's another character from Get Out. Yeah. That was in The Handmaid's Tale. So I was like, oh, I love that show.
Connecting all of those strings.
I'm going to have to connect the dots a little bit. Yeah.
Never hurts to kind of promote your favorite things, right?
Yeah. She's awesome. So I would highly recommend watching The Invisible Man.
Yeah.
Because not only is it written by Leigh Whannell, but, you know.
Yeah, and it's a good take on the Invisible
Elizabeth's
Man
in it
story.
Too, yeah.
So
Elizabeth's in it. Benedict's in it.
Yeah.
You should go see it.
Yeah, a good film. And there also is, I was going to save this for later to mention, but since we're mentioning it right now, I might as well. There actually is a connection between this movie.
Oh, yes. I was going to bring that up later, too.
Why don't you go ahead and tell us about it?
So there is an interesting connection because the companies that created the technology, so Cobalt is a high-tech company that creates the optics like the chips and whatnot.
Yeah.
That's who Asha worked for. In Leigh Whannell's film, The Invisible Man, Cobalt is also a high-tech optics company, and it's founded by the character Celia's abusive ex, Adrian Griffin.
Mm-hmm.
Since the two films are set several decades apart, it's pretty likely, actually, that they're shared in the same universe and that both iterations of Cobalt are the same company, just at different times.
Yeah.
So they have like a really cool connection there.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty fun. There was even, Leigh Whannell had made a statement saying it wasn't a conscious thing, like, aha, this is going to pay off in 2 movies. But he said, I definitely had fun being able to do that.
Yeah.
So,
that's even cooler.
Yeah, so it still isn't necessarily certain.
Sure.
But
it wasn't done on purpose.
I mean, it was maybe done halfway on purpose,
Yeah.
but not with the intention of making a cinematic universe.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, who's next on our list here?
So I don't have any more actors or actresses to talk about.
okay.
So if you have any more actors or actresses to talk about.
There's 2 more that I want to mention.
Sure, let's go ahead and mention them.
One of them is Betty Gabriel, which I feel is definitely worth mentioning because
The detective.
She's the detective.
Yeah.
She plays Detective Cortez.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big reasons I want to mention her is, 1, because she's a great actor,
Mm-hmm.
but 2, she was in one of our previous subjects, Get Out.
Oh, yeah.
So,
she was.
Yeah, so she played Georgina in Get
Mhm.
Out, and here she shows up again.
Completely different role.
Completely different role.
Yeah.
Very, very empowered
Yeah.
in this film.
She does a really great job, though.
Yes.
Again.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Stellar
Nailed it.
performance.
Mhm.
So I think even in that podcast, I had mentioned that she was in the Purge election year.
Mhm.
Of course, she was in Get Out. I mean, don't need to recover that one. And she also had a fairly decent stint on the Jack Ryan TV series.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, she had at least that, I'm sure, paying some of her bills. And as far as like some personal details, I found that she graduated from Iowa State with a degree in animal science.
That's so cool.
Which is pretty
Girl
awesome.
after my own heart.
Right, exactly. But then she moved to Chicago to pursue dancing and eventually graduated from Juilliard.
Yeah, I like her even more.
Yeah.
I love dancing.
Yeah, she's a dancer. She's an
I mean, I'm not a
animal lover.
Juilliard dancer, but I like to dance.
Right. Yeah, so she's definitely got some talent behind her, and it shows. She's
She's a
definitely,
neat lady, yeah.
Definitely got a presence on screen.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel we'd be remiss if we didn't mention, at least just real quickly, a fella by the name of Simon Maiden,
Mm-hmm.
who was the voice of STEM
Yes.
in this film. So you never see him,
Mm-mm.
but he provides
it.
the voice, or it. Yeah. STEM, obviously no gender there. So you never see STEM necessarily aside from a computer chip, but that voice that you hear throughout the film talking with Gray, that is Simon Maiden. He was in The Great Raid from 2005, a little World War II film. And I also have to mention, just even though it was 1 episode, he had 1 episode in Winners and Losers, which also was Melanie Vallejo was in that as well.
Yeah.
I don't know in particular if they ever shared a scene together in that series, but it was worth mentioning. And also another
Is he an
Australian.
Aussie?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
So did you know the word STEM is Dutch for voice?
Oh, is it really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah. So STEM also is an abbreviation for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Of course.
Yeah.
That's what you think of when you think of STEM.
Yeah.
But it's also an abbreviation for voice in Dutch.
That's
so
pretty cool.
I thought that was really kind of cool.
I wonder if that was intentional or if that was purely coincidental.
I don't know. I think science, technology, engineering, mathematics.
Yeah.
Maybe is where it came from. Or maybe they did use it as voice.
Yeah.
And then science, engineering, and technology and mathematics was kind of like...
Yeah. They're like, hey, it works both ways.
Yeah,
great,
right?
great. So kind of get into...
One other thing.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention with Benedict Hardy,
Mm-hmm.
who played Fisk.
Yeah.
He was in NCIS Sydney.
Oh, was he really? Of course he was. I could have just guessed that, I think. Wait, don't tell me. Was he in NCIS? Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
That's worth mentioning because we did
Law and
talk
Order,
about that.
NCIS.
Yeah, NCIS. There they all are.
There they all are.
We got our MCU mentioned. We got our NCIS. The podcast is complete. See you next week, folks.
Okay, now we can continue on.
Let's talk about Leigh Whannell.
Yes, he's an interesting guy.
Yeah.
Another Aussie. Shock. Oh.
Yeah, right. Surprise, surprise.
He shares a birthday with Jim Carrey.
Does he really?
Yep, he's 5 years younger-ish.
Boy, just the previous episode.
Yes, I had to mention it because we just talked about Jim Carrey.
Right.
He shares it's January. Ooh, I'm going to slay it.
Oh, boy.
It's January something, 17th, I think, maybe.
Somewhere in the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Everybody
It's January something.
With the new year, let's celebrate Jim Carrey and Leigh Whannell.
So they both share a birthday. It's not important, but I thought it was interesting.
That is a fun little...
It's a fun tidbit.
Why not?
Yeah.
But he's also, I'm sure, probably best known as writer, director, actor in Saw 1, writer, director of Saw 2 and 3. In Saw 1, he played Adam, right? He also was writer and director of, I believe, every Insidious movie. I know at least the first few, perhaps some of the final few. And he even played, in fact, he's played a character named Specs in each and every Insidious movie.
Yeah, I have it. He just wrote and directed chapter 3.
Oh.
But I know he's almost more of a prolific actor than he is even a writer and director.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been in a lot of things.
I know for a fact he did do the first two at least, as well as 3, obviously. But yeah, it was
funny because all I had was 3.
Yeah, it was his baby. That was his thing. Yeah, he obviously, and then we mentioned The Invisible Man already.
Yeah.
So he has his fingers in all of those kind of big series. And he, like you mentioned, another Australian.
Yeah.
And at 18, he was accepted into the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology's Media Arts program. And this is where he met James Wan, who was his collaborator on Saw.
Yeah.
So, little educational connection.
Yeah. You know, those connections are important because I think I even have educational connections to this day where I haven't talked to him in probably 12 years.
Right.
And I could probably call him right now and they would offer me a job.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those are good. Those are really important connections.
Yeah. It's good to have those in your pocket at all times.
He's a fan of a couple of movies I thought you might find interesting.
Oh, really? No.
He's a big fan of the film Cube.
Oh, yeah.
He loves Cube.
I love Cube, yeah. The third one, not so much, but the first one and the second one was fun, but the first one, great little sci-fi horror flick.
And then he also really likes Videodrome from 1983.
Oh, right, yeah.
He's a big fan of older technology type films, and he likes films that are contained. So that's why he likes The Cube.
Right.
He likes films about, where there's not a lot of other people in them. There's just a few people. It's just a handful. And then the story is really what drives it. And he just really seems to like stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Videodrome, a little 80s Cronenberg and James Wood's vehicle there. A lot of really fun movie. I don't know if that one holds up as well as it used to.
It doesn't, but I think
it's still a fun adventure.
Yeah.
Nonetheless.
He was asked in an interview I was watching if he's watched any movies recently that still scared him. Since he does scary movies, you would think maybe he'd be desensitized to a lot of horror movies. And he said the movie Hereditary, which is in 2018 as well, which came out the same time this movie came out. He said that one scared him a little bit.
That movie's intense.
And he said it's really cool for him because as writer-director, he said he feels a lot of writer-directors have a hard time taking themselves out of that creation process when they watch a movie. When they're watching a movie, they're like noticing the lighting and this, the set and the actors and what they're doing. He said he's got this really unique ability to take himself out of that role and put himself in a consumer role and just
audience
enjoy it.
Yeah. Let's move on from the people who brought us this film and talk about how the movie was received when it was released. So what sort of fun little tidbits do you have for me on that?
Well, so the film got several nominations in a lot of different areas, but it wasn't like it was a Emmy Awards or anything like that.
It wasn't a big Oscar contender.
The biggest thing I found, the biggest nominated thing, I mean, they've won a couple small awards here and there, but the one that I thought was most poignant as a nominee was for the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films. In 2019, they were a nominee for Best Sci-Fi Film, but they lost to Ready Player One, and I don't really feel like that was fair. So if you're going against that,
when you're going against a big Spielberg, huge budget film,
and he's not known for big budgets. He doesn't love big budgets, and that's kind of something he's held firm to. So I feel like that was
it's a little unfair.
He wasn't going to win that one.
No.
If that hadn't been in there, though, with the other contenders, he may have had a chance.
It's unfortunate because I prefer this film to Ready Player One. Ready Player One was fun.
Yes.
But that's all I'm going to say for that one. It was fun. It was not great. It was fun.
Yeah.
This one is fun. It keeps your attention. It's a nice little mystery.
I think Ready Player One's easier for a lot more people to watch.
It is easily digestible.
Yeah. This one, the Upgrade is a little more intense.
Yeah. Yeah.
A little more visually intense.
Certainly not going to catch it as a family flick.
No. No. My mother was very upset a few times.
Covering her eyes a few times.
Yes.
Yeah.
And very upset.
Right. You did mention he doesn't like big budgets.
No.
Do you know what the budget on this one was?
$3 million.
Tiny.
Yeah, small. For especially after you've seen the film, I don't know how he made it for $3 million because it looked really good.
They did well.
One of the things he really prides himself on is practical effects. So he tried not to use a lot of CGI, and the places he spent a lot of money on that stuff, he was very explicit on where he put those things.
Mm-hmm.
So like the visuals of this futuristic city, like you see that just once.
Yeah.
The rest of it's all inside of buildings and homes and things like that.
Close-up shots of cars driving on a freeway.
Yeah. So he's really good at taking that budget. Like if you want to give him a little bit of money and tell him make something big, he's going to be really good at that. And speaking of big, opening weekend, they made back that $3 million budget and then some.
Yeah.
Opening weekend, they made $4,670,000, almost $71,000.
That's a good chunk.
That's a good chunk, yeah.
For a small film like that, that's great.
Yes, and it did like almost $12 million in domestic sales.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, like we said, for a small film, $12 million on a $3 million budget, not so bad.
Yeah. And one thing I want to talk about too is legs. I've been reading about how films have legs.
Oh, right.
Have you read about this?
I see films walking around all the time, but I don't really pay them much attention.
It's like a way to judge how the film's doing.
Right.
And so like, for instance, Dumb and Dumber had 7.77 for legs. And it's a criteria. So it's like, how did it perform in the theaters? Did people like it? And it gets a score.
Sure, okay.
So it brings it to a certain number.
Ooh, fancy.
So I think I'm going to start bringing up legs every time we talk about films.
We got Leia's leg segment.
So we can start... So we can start getting an idea of what these numbers mean, because they're not, you can't look up any way to get where they get the number from. But the higher the number, the more successful the film typically is.
Okay.
So 7.77 for Dumb and Dumber means that it had long legs. Is what they call it, long legs.
Super tall.
Yes.
Yeah, great.
So to give you some perspective, that one did 7.77. This film only did 2.56. So it didn't have long legs.
Some tiny legs.
Yeah.
That's my size legs.
So it did really well, but it's not going to be like one of those films where, like Dumb and Dumber, where everybody knows about it. Not everybody's going to know about this film because it's got shorter legs.
So it was largely considered a success.
Yeah.
Despite all the
It wasn't a flop, that's for sure.
No, not a flop.
Despite its short legs.
Despite its short legs. And it did receive fairly positive reviews with reviewers, critics, and audience members as well. It wasn't topping out any lists necessarily, but it did come in pretty regularly in the 7 and 8 out of 10, the old 70-80% range, which is great. I mean, for us, again, a small film, especially a kind of a small sci-fi, really small / horror. I mean, I wouldn't really call it horror, but it's got enough gore that maybe you could...
Pretty horrific.
Yeah. There's
some
a few
horrific
things.
scenes.
There are some. It was also mentioned by a lot of the reviewers that the message it was sending was pretty appropriate. The whole, hey, watch out for the AI.
Yes. Let's love technology, but let's not love it.
Yeah, let's maybe keep things under a little bit of control, right?
Arm's length, all right? Not be putting chips in our heads.
And it was also given some fair praise for the amount of comedy that it managed to splash throughout this very dour, gritty film.
It's funny in a way that you're like, well, that's awkward. Oh, yeah, that's how I would react if I was him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't jokes. It wasn't slapstick.
No.
But it was just like his reactions to how things are going.
Yes.
You're like, yeah, that's how I would react to, oh my God, what are you doing? But you're the one doing it, Yeah,
Logan Marshall-Green, he really pulled off, he was basically the comedy in the film, but he was also the straight man, and he was also the action star.
Yeah.
He really pulled off a lot of different faces in this film.
One of the things that Leigh wanted to get across was that idea that someone's head was doing something different from what their body was doing. And he wanted to give Logan a lot of time to figure out how he was going to do this. And so Logan was in the States and he was in Australia. So their very first film conversation, he actually told Logan about what his idea was for this and like how he wanted him to be more robotic and like start working on it now. So he had like 3 months of training and preparation before, all during their pre-production phase to start like working on this.
Right.
And Leigh said that he would call him on video calls and be like, what do you think of this? And how do you like that? And Leigh's like, maybe a little less robotic and a little bit more smooth. Like he said they had lots of conversations about how the robotic movements were going.
Yeah.
So he really worked hard, and you can tell that he worked hard. When you see the movie, you're like, wow, that is really good.
He really did a great job with his robotic movement.
Yeah,
for certain.
So you could tell he worked hard on that. And they used dance and movement coordinators along with stunt coordinators to get him to have those smooth movements as well. So it's something a little different than some of the other action films where it's mostly just stunt coordinators.
Yeah, no, he's as you mentioned, there's sort of a nice happy medium with his movements where it's not like that, it's
jarring,
not like the robot dance or nothing like that. But you can tell that you watch it and it feels like he's being moved by
his body looks awkward. It's not a normal body movement, but it's also not like a stationary robot or anything.
Particularly in the beginning, I think toward the end it starts to become much more natural and fluid as I think STEM is getting used to controlling Gray's body. But especially in the beginning, it's very robotic, and it's kind of neat the way they pull it off and make it fluid.
Right. I think one of the things that I was thinking about too and I'm sure this is probably something that was going on in Logan's head too, but a robot doesn't have as many joints and moving parts as a human being does. So you almost got to put yourself in the mind of, well, if a robot had access to all of the moving parts and joints that a human body does, how would they use it, And so it's going to be different than like a normal robot.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be a human either. So I think he found a really nice happy medium there.
Well, and to add to the point of, you mentioned that Leigh wanted to convey how a person's head could be doing something and their body doing something different. In that fight scene between Gray and Cirque, after STEM takes control, there's a scene where the STEM uses Gray's hand to move
Gray's head
out of the way because STEM can't control Gray's head. He's inserted in the neck below the head. So obviously he has to dodge the incoming punch somehow, and Gray doesn't know it's coming, so STEM uses the hand to push the head.
Yeah, and I actually didn't notice it when we watched it full the first time.
Oh, really?
I didn't notice it. Like, it didn't dawn on me.
Yeah.
But then when I read that, I was like, oh. And then I had to watch the clip, and I was like, oh.
Yeah. It was a really cool little
added
segment when you watch it. It's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely, it does.
On that note, too, there is a scene where STEM sees that tattoo, and he draws it using Logan's body. One of the things that I think a lot of people didn't like about that scene is that after he drew it, he had to hold it up to Logan's eye so he could scan it.
I will read it. Hold it in front of your eye.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, if he wrote it, wouldn't he have it in his memory already? Or
like think he would have been able to analyze it already.
Yeah. So there is the cool part about moving the head because, he can't move the head. But then there's also this other part where it's like, well, that doesn't make sense because he should just know it already.
Yeah, he should. He really, this film was not without its plot holes.
No.
I think we've already mentioned a few of them.
Yeah.
But
it's one of those films you can't overanalyze it.
Shut off your brain.
Oh.
If we can go that far and say that.
Well.
But don't really. It's a fun film. So continue to analyze more of it because it is deeper than it seems in some cases. But I also did want to mention with those kind of fluid movements and the robotic movements as well, another kind of neat trick that Leigh used was he wanted Gray and STEM to be the center of the action at pretty much all times. So a way that they did that was to take a cell phone that was Bluetooth connected to cameras and like hide it on Logan's person so that the cameras would track the cell phone and keep him in the center of the frame, which is really cool. I
never thought about how that worked.
Yeah, to show my ignorance. I didn't even know that was a thing.
No.
So that's really cool.
It's just genius. Yeah. Really a genius moment for a director.
For people in the filmmaking industry to have all these little ideas and thoughts and considerations in the back of their head to make things work. It's really cool.
Yeah. So I think I'd like to get into some of the influences of the film and kind of how Leigh fleshed out this.
Yes, please. I love that stuff.
Yeah, me too. So in an interview I was listening to where he was describing how he came up with this. So the idea just kind of popped into his head about a quadriplegic with a computer chip controlling his body. That was like the first kind of
baby idea
that he had. And he said a lot of the things that he writes they start with these little baby ideas. He said a lot of times he throws them out. But the ones that he just keeps coming back to over and over again, he thinks about them more and more, and then he starts obsessing about them, and that's when he starts to come up with
itch at the back of his brain.
Yeah, and then he fleshes those out. He says with this film and with a lot of his other films, he usually starts by focusing on the story and finishing that, and then drawing inspiration from other things.
Okay.
So this was no exception. He came up with the idea. He fleshed out the story, like the main story, what he was going to tell. And then he started to draw some influences from some other movies.
Sure.
And I think you would be so proud of him, and I am so proud of him for fleshing out this movie using some of our favorite movies.
Okay, did he? All right, let me know what you found, because I'm intrigued.
So he used films like RoboCop.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And Terminator from 1984. He said he loved the how lo-fi and punk the first Terminator felt.
Yeah, absolutely was.
Yeah, and that's what he was. He wasn't obviously going to make this film just like that, but he is such a huge fan of these practical effects and theatrics.
Yeah, low computer effects for sure.
And that's another way he keeps his budget down too, obviously. But he likes the way the RoboCop and especially Terminator has that, kind of futuristic feel without a lot of the special effects.
Like a lo-fi future.
Like a lo-fi future. In the interview too, he was talking about how it bothers him when they're like, oh yeah, I saw Terminator, that's the one with the liquid guy. And he's like, that's not the one I'm talking about.
That's not the one.
No.
Terminator 2 was great. But
it drives him nuts because he's like, that's what people think Terminator is the one with the liquid guy in it. And he's like, it's the first one that I'm talking about.
The first one where Arnold was the bad guy, not the good guy.
Yes, yeah. So that's kind of where he got some of his inspiration from for the film. Aside from that, though, I mean, it was mostly just his brainchild and, his own story. So, well, speaking of the budget being low,
right?
Because he likes to keep it lo-fi. This was shot in Australia as well.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons for that was to keep it inexpensive, because I guess it's much cheaper to film a film in Australia than it is to do it here in the States.
Yeah, we put a lot of price on things here.
Yeah. So that was another kind of little thing that he does to make things a little less expensive. He's so good at it.
Yeah,
I was reading about it, and it fascinated me how cheap he could make these films for. It didn't look like a $3 million film.
No, it didn't. It looked like a much
higher film,
higher budget film than that, which is great. I love if a filmmaker can pull tricks on me that way. That's great.
Me too.
Well, I mean, with Leigh being known for working with small budgets and making them look grand, he's also known for closing a loop by bringing one concept and bringing it back again later on, right? So there's a sequence, and this isn't necessarily a spoiler in particular, but when we first meet Gray, he's working on that vehicle, and he cuts his finger while he's working on the interior, the engine compartment. And he kind of puts it in his mouth, as most people are like, oh shit, cut himself, and kind of sucks the blood off. At the end of the film, Gray's hand is covered in blood, and we see him walking away. And again, he sticks his finger in his mouth, and
something's different at the end. We won't tell you what it is, but something's different at the end.
Takes kind of a big
when
lick
you
off
see that, you're
at that
like,
point.
That's strange. But then when you look at it that way, then it's like, oh, interesting.
Well, I'm going to come out and spoil it right here. Everyone's vampires.
Oh, Brandon.
I know. I just couldn't hold it back.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you ruined it. One.
All right, throw this one out. Sorry, folks.
He's lying.
Everyone's vampires. That
would be quite the twist, though.
Yeah. This is the sequel to Twilight.
This would be a good sequel.
It would be an upgrade.
It'd be an upgrade. Oh my God.
Brandon.
That was bad.
Well, there's something else that I thought was fun. And this isn't a Leigh Whannell typical kind of thing, but it was just, I thought kind of his world building is really good, well done. And there's a segment where you can see sort of a cityscape. In fact, there's a few cityscape segments, but there's one where you can see two very large central buildings.
Uh-huh.
One of them is Cobalt,
Yep.
and the other one is Vessel.
Mm-hmm.
And they are,
Blocks.
that like a block and a half from, like basically across the street from each other, which I thought was really cool because it's these two companies in direct competition, yet they could literally throw rocks at each other if they wanted to.
Throwing stones.
Exactly. And they're big old glass buildings.
Yeah. You know, talking about looking at these big cityscapes, people have noticed that if you watch some of these big cityscapes where you like kind of zoom back and you can see like the traffic, you can see the cars driving on the wrong side of the road.
Oh, can you really?
Because it's in Australia. Yeah. So you actually do see some of that, and you see some bridges and main roads that are from Australia and stuff like that.
Yeah. Let's say the opposite side of the road, because it's not the wrong. And for Australians,
For here, it's the wrong side of the road.
For the setting of the film,
It's the wrong
it's the
side.
wrong side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Yeah, there's a few times where you can notice it.
You know, when they were in some of the car chase scenes, I was watching for that in particular because I was like, well, I wonder if someone's going to mess up. No, in the car chase scenes, they got it right.
They got it right. Yes.
Because obviously they closed down all the traffic.
Matter of fact, there's even a vehicle that's Australian only that had the steering wheel on the side we would normally drive it on. But you can't buy that car here.
Oh, really?
So even that car had the steering wheel on the right side.
So they had to
the
modify.
left side. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they had the American side.
Yes.
They had to modify that vehicle then.
Either they modified that one or they just had one that was
just made
for somebody in the U.S., but they don't make that vehicle for us to purchase here.
Wow.
And I didn't write down what the vehicle was, but you can only get them. You
in
can't,
Australia.
Yeah, well, especially in Australia. I'm sure you can get them somewhere else
maybe
too, but
somewhere else, special order.
you can't get them here.
Yeah. All right.
But even that had the steering wheel on the American side or the U.S. side, whereas, you know, if you look at the city streets, though, when they're doing some of the chase scenes, you can see the cars are on the wrong side of the road. Yeah,
that's awesome.
But you don't notice it. You're just having fun watching this chase scene, you know?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I always try looking for those small little things.
And you didn't look
honestly,
to think of that
this time
one.
I didn't notice it. I tried. Okay, I'm gonna say I tried to watch it really closely. Obviously, I did.
You were enjoying
it
way too much.
It was far too entertaining.
Yeah.
It was just kept me watching from start to finish, which is great. That's even better than me watching for the fuck ups.
Yes, absolutely. Because then you're missing the story. You're not enjoying yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I will say that Whannell, when he wrote the film, he intended for it to be just a singular one-off story. No sequels, no expansions or anything of that nature. But the film did well enough where Blumhouse was like, hey, okay, you know, maybe we could do
all right, another
sequel.
Blumhouse film.
Yep, another Blumhouse film.
Yeah.
Those are probably going to show up a lot in our podcast. I'm a Blumhouse sucker.
I am too.
But in 2020, it was mentioned that a possible sequel story was being worked on.
Do you think this is because they started working on this expanded universe using Cobalt? And
I mean, it could be.
Do you think that was like part of it, maybe?
It could be part of the...
Because I think that's cool.
Yeah, it could have been part of the reason that they wanted to attempt a sequel.
Yeah.
But the sequel story was, I think, initially written as a film idea, but then decided they wanted to do a TV series of it. The story would be set a few years after this film, and one way or another, STEM has been evolved and in a new body. So it wouldn't be our friend Gray coming back.
Sure.
But it would be someone else. So maybe it's another, I don't know if it would be another STEM or the same STEM. Who knows? I mean, whatever they decide to do with it.
Kind of interesting.
There hasn't been any news on
about
it yet as far as moving on.
So it's another Goonies thing.
Yeah, it was mentioned in 2020, obviously COVID.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe at that point some production situations were different or plans have changed. Who knows? I think it'd be cool to see a little something more.
Hopeful, but not likely.
But if it doesn't happen, I'm really happy with the story as it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't need more. But it's okay if there is. But if they put out another one and it sucks, boy, am I going to be disappointed.
Well, the way this film ended, and I'm not going to say it yet, but the way this film ended, it does leave you kind of going, oh,
what's next?
What now? What next?
Yeah.
What's going to happen? Because it leaves it, and you're like, wait, that's it?
Yeah. I will say, at the risk of giving anything away, this film is a gut punch ending.
Yeah, it is.
It sort of leaves you like, well, shit.
It's like watching Lost. And at the end, you're like, what?
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah. It leaves you thinking there's got to be more, but there's not. That's it. That's just the way it ends. And that's fine for this movie. Honestly,
it is fine.
I think it fits the film.
It does.
Just the way it should
It fits the flavor of the film. It really does.
Yeah.
But it does leave me wondering what the hell happened.
Yeah. It does leave me wanting more, but again, I'm okay if there's not.
That's true. I guess.
You guys. I mean, I hate to say it, but I'm kind of running out of.
I don't have any more. This one was pretty contained.
It is pretty contained.
Not a lot of extra world stuff.
It is a completely original story, obviously, so that's probably why. The story presents itself as it is on its face in the film. There's not a whole lot to really dig for to get crazy lore. We don't need to go finding other books or other media.
Nope.
It was just this film. That's not to say there's still
worth seeing.
Yeah, it's still absolutely worth seeing. And that's not to say that there's not other ways that this connects to other films. As we mentioned, the whole connection between Invisible Man, right? But there's also a reference to Saw in this movie.
There is, in the scene where he's got to find that hacker.
Yeah, so he's looking for a hacker named Jamie. STEM is directing him to this hacker because STEM wants the company that owns STEM is trying to shut STEM down. And STEM wants to continue to help Gray on his revenge path. So STEM suggests, hey, find a hacker to get these blockers off of me so I can work completely outside the infrastructure of the company that owns me, right? So STEM is being slowly shut down, and Gray is on the hunt for this hacker. He gets to the hacker's residence, which is a tenement building, an apartment building.
It's a
really dirty,
abandoned.
It's nasty. As he's going, in fact, there's two references I'm going to bring up in this apartment building to Saw. The first one we encounter is when he's looking at the door listing, the doorbell buzzer block, right? The panel of doorbell buzzers.
One of the names.
In fact, I think beside the person he's looking for, the only other name that's basically legible is J. Wan.
Weird.
Right?
Who the
hell could that be? Nobody knows a J. Wan that's associated with Leigh Whannell.
No one.
Certainly couldn't be James Wan.
No, the Saw franchise.
Not a chance. So that was kind of a fun little nod to a friend, right? But also in that very same building, I think probably less than a minute later, Gray is running down a hallway. And it is a fairly darkened scene. You can sort of barely make it out when Gray walks past it.
There's spray painting all over the walls.
Yeah, there's graffiti
so unless you're looking
everywhere.
for it, you probably wouldn't see it.
Right.
But.
Yeah, there's graffiti throughout this building. But one particular piece of graffiti is a graffiti stylized portrait of the face of Billy, the puppet from Saw. So we see it when Gray runs past. And then we see it again. The lighting's a bit better when Fisk and one of his companions walk past it. So if you're looking for it, you can see it then. We do see it one further time when some vessel operatives enter the building also.
Oh, the ones that got killed before they even exited the...
Yeah, they weren't much of a threat. But they also enter the building and walk past that same hallway. And you can see it there as well. Yeah. So that was kind of a fun little Easter egg. I didn't notice it on first viewing.
I didn't either.
On second viewing, I noticed it. And then when I was looking at
I didn't even notice on second viewing.
No?
I had to do research and I was like, oh.
It's absolutely not obvious at all.
But you were looking for stuff.
Yeah, I was looking for stuff. It's quite literally one of those blink and you'll miss it situations.
Yeah.
But of course,
as are most of the Easter eggs in these things.
Yeah, that's kind of the way they're meant to be.
Yeah.
But that was kind of a neat little
homage
bit there. Yeah, a little homage.
Are you ready to go on to a little spoiler?
Yeah, I thought I had more than that, but honestly,
we just have a little spoiler.
Just a tiny one.
Just a small one. But we do want to make sure you don't ruin the whole movie for yourselves if you haven't seen it.
It's not even a huge... Well, I guess it is a
huge
spoiler.
It's the end.
It's the end.
It's how it all comes together at the end. And it's the thing that he's known for doing. Like he does in the Saw movies and Insidious.
As very typical, anybody who doesn't want to hear this stuff, please take all your snacks, all your belongings, step out of the movie theater lobby. I'll give you a little wave.
I can give you some headphones. You want some earmuffs?
Yeah, we got
earmuffs?
Some earplugs would be good.
Yeah, you can watch us talk.
Like that. Yeah, if you can read lips though, please close your eyes.
Close your eyes.
We don't want to spoil you that way in this purely audio.
We're just gonna start calling it earmuffs now, guys.
It's time. So cover up them ears, because here we go.
Okay.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
You need to leave now.
All right, I'm going to count down from 3. Because I've already given you enough
thank God.
time. 3, 2, 1. Here we go.
You packing up shop? Where are you going?
See ya.
What do you mean, see? What are you saying? Where are you going? You can't leave me like this!
The ending has 2 very Leigh Whannell hallmarks
Yeah.
kind of built into it.
So fun.
So the first one is Leigh Whannell loves to play with a flashback sequence. After the big twist is revealed, he likes to do a little flashback.
Yeah,
to
if you
say,
think of Saw, there's that whole thing at the end where they flash back to the detective and like where he was at certain times and what was going on. He just loves doing that.
Jigsaw stands up and reveals he's been lying there
The whole
that room
time.
the whole damn time. This film does something similar to that. You get the reveal, and then Leigh Whannell gives his very trademark signature flashback where the twist is revealed and everything gets shown how it all kind of fit together all along the way.
Pieces.
Right in front of our eyes. But of course, we didn't know the twist, so we had no reason to suspect that it was something other than what we were seeing.
Right.
So the second part of our little spoiler here is another thing that Leigh Whannell likes to do, and that is revealing to us that the villain was with us
the whole time. Guess who the villain is, guys? It's STEM.
It's STEM. Surprise. STEM is the mastermind.
STEM
the whole damn thing
is the mastermind.
The big villain inside of our heads
is a tiny little chip.
Yeah.
Which is even cooler.
Super cool.
He doesn't even have legs.
No legs.
No
Still
long
managed
legs.
to pull off the
no
whole
short
damn thing.
legs. No legs at all.
So all you folks out there that are really freaked out by AI, you're justified in this instance.
Yeah, this might break you, honestly.
It could.
Yeah.
That's what
Careful.
STEM was waiting for.
That's what he wants.
So I'm a fan of AI, but in limited capacity. Taking away creative jobs really sucks. But
so that also brings up that whole blood finger licking thing. So now at the end, he becomes STEM and STEM takes over his body and he's not himself anymore. And STEM puts him in like a dream reality. So him licking his finger is actually not really technically him. It's STEM. But I think STEM is just like reliving that moment and like trying to be him.
STEM is feeling what it is to be human.
Yeah.
He's finally got control of the head.
Yeah, head.
Yeah. So very interesting, very kind of fun ending on that. I mean, I thought it was fun. Your mother was very disappointed with the ending.
She was very upset with the ending because it just ends where he's taken over and that's it.
She likes a happy ending.
She does like a happy ending. She was also very upset with a lot of the blood and gore.
Well, yeah. That's true.
I forget, there was one scene where he pushes his head into like a knife or something.
Yeah, Cirque's death.
Yeah. And she was like, oh my God. She was very upset about that. And I forgot that was so violent. So, Mom, if you're listening, I'm sorry.
See, you're getting all emotional. Never do that.
At some point, I think this is the second or third episode we've mentioned your mother watching a movie with us.
She watches movies with us, so.
We might have to bring her on the podcast sometime.
You may have to meet her sometime. Just for a little while, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, limited engagement.
Yeah, limited engagement.
Special guest star. So yeah, it's really about all I got.
Sums it up for me.
Oh, hold on. Let me just kind of wave to all the folks outside. Come on back in.
Let me gesture to take your earmuffs off.
Yeah, the whole
take your earmuffs off.
Go ahead.
Okay, there. Okay.
Here we go, folks. Since we are ready to move on to episode 5, we're going to say goodnight to everyone here as we close the lobby down once again. Hate to see you all go, but we can't keep it open forever.
Yeah.
And more than that, honestly.
It's time to close the doors, Brandon and Leia.
No. Leia, did you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, see, I was kind of afraid of this. We don't actually control the doors anymore.
Say what?
Yeah, I know. I got into this deal. I upgraded to smart doors.
Whoa, okay, great.
And now they're kind of just taking over.
You're supposed to come to me and like talk to me about these decisions before you make them.
Sometimes I get really excited. I love technology, and smart doors sounded cool.
Yeah, they do sound cool.
It's
not so cool now.
No. Unfortunately, we got to kick everyone out. But before we do, and before we get locked in here, just because we're kicking you out and closing the doors doesn't mean you have to stop interacting with us.
No, please. You should continue to interact with us.
You can find me, Brandon McLeavy, on Facebook as Brandon McLeavy and on Instagram at BrandJNRP. And Leia, how about you?
You can find me, Leah McLeavy, at LM Nerd Room on Facebook and Instagram.
Please stop by Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, leave some reviews, bring other people around, tell them about the lobby, give us some stars. We need stars. Apparently that's the currency.
That's the
in
currency
podcast
these
land.
days.
Stars.
Yeah, stars.
Stars all day.
Pay us in stars.
Yes, great. You can also find the show at the Movie Theater Lobby on Facebook and YouTube, as well as themovietheaterlobby.com and the Movie Theater Lobby at gmail.com. Oh, and of course, the Movie Lobby on Instagram, because the Movie Theater Lobby was just too long.
It just has too much riz, man.
Too much of that. Leia can take care of the riz for us. And I will not.
Yeah.
It's for the best.
It's for the best.
Okay, everyone. Time to go. The doors are closing and locking. Also, don't forget to unsilence your cell phones. And if you want to turn your AI back on, go right ahead.
Say hi
That's
to
up to
Siri
you.
for me.
Yeah, Siri or Alexa, all those.
Say hi to her for me. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Leia, thank you once again.
Thank you, Brandon.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
STEM talks to you?
Yeah, it's got a mind of its own. I can hear its voice in my head.